What if I told you that the most important thing you did today was a lie? You woke up, checked your phone, rushed to a job, and chased a clock that never seems to stop. We call this progress. We look back at our ancestors in the Stone Age, and we see a life of brutal, frantic survival. We see men and women running for their lives from predators, starving in the cold, and fighting nature for every breath. But what if the reality was the exact opposite? What if the Stone Age wasn't defined by the hunt, but by the stillness? I decided to step out of the digital noise and into the silence. I asked myself, can I survive an entire day doing only what Stone Age people did? And in doing so, I discovered that they spent most of their day doing something we have almost entirely forgotten. Something that didn't just keep them alive, it made them human. Welcome to Primordial Chronicles. Today we are stripping away the myths of the primitive savage. We are told a story of constant struggle, that our ancestors had no time for anything but the search for food. But the archaeological record and modern anthropology tell a different story. They tell a story of the first affluent society. Our goal today is to uncover the truth of the Paleolithic schedule. We aren't looking for the moments of high-speed adrenaline or the terror of the mammoth hunt. We are looking for the mundane, the repetitive, the quiet industry that filled the vast majority of their daylight hours. Because once you understand what they were really doing, you'll realize that your modern brain is still craving that same rhythm. When we look at a prehistoric site, we see what remains: bones, stone tips, and ash. Because these are the things that survive the crushing weight of millennia, we build our entire concept of history around them. We see a spearhead, so we assume their life was defined by the kill. We see a charred bone, so we assume their life was defined by the meal. This is the hunter-gatherer bias. We've been taught that survival was a 24/7 job. We imagine a group of humans huddled in a cave, terrified to step out, only doing so when the hunger became more frightening than the predators. We view their life through the lens of our own modern anxiety. We live in a world of deadlines, hustle culture, and the constant need to be productive. We can't imagine a world without a to-do list. But here's the challenge. Stone Age people didn't have a clock. They had a rhythm. Anthropologists studying surviving hunter-gatherer groups like the Hadza or the San found something that shocked the academic world. These people, living in environments much harsher than our ancestors' lush prehistoric plains, only spend about 3 to 5 hours a day on what we would call work. That is the time it takes to gather enough tubers, nuts, and meat to feed the group. So if they weren't working 40-hour weeks, and they weren't hunting every waking second, what were they doing with the other 10 hours of daylight? If you try to replicate their day, you quickly realize that surviving isn't about the moment of the hunt. It's about the preparation for it. It's about a hidden industry that is as much about the mind as it is about the hands. To survive my Stone Age day, I had to put down my tools. No knife, no lighter, no plastic, no steel. I stood in the woods and realized that without my tools, I am the weakest animal in the forest. I have no claws. My teeth are blunt. I cannot run fast enough to catch a deer, and I am not strong enough to fight a wolf. In the Stone Age, a human without a tool was a ghost waiting to happen. This brings us to the pivot. We assume hunting and gathering was the primary activity. But hunting is an event. Gathering is a walk. The foundational activity, the thing that consumed the morning, the afternoon, and the hours by the fire, was maintenance. Think about the sheer amount of stuff required to stay alive in the Paleolithic. You need a container to carry water. You need a cord to tie a hide. You need a scraper to clean a skin. You need a needle made of bone to sew your clothes. You need a spear that is perfectly balanced, a fire starter that won't fail in the damp, and a stone edge that can cut through the thickest hide like butter. In our world, when a tool breaks, we buy a new one. In their world, every tool was a relationship. I spent the first 4 hours of my challenge just trying to find the right materials. This is where the time goes. You don't just find a spear, you spend hours walking the creek beds looking for the right kind of flint or chert. You spend hours testing the flexibility of different wood species. You are constantly looking, constantly assessing. But once you have the materials, that's when the real day begins. And this is where we find the "this" in our title. It isn't the hunt, it isn't the feast, it is the nap. The "this" that Stone Age people spent most of their day doing is lithic technology. In simpler terms, they were napping stone. If you have never tried to nap a piece of flint, you cannot understand the sheer time commitment it requires. It is not about hitting one rock against another. It is a high-stakes game of physics and geometry. One wrong strike, one accidental fracture, and 4 hours of work are shattered. As I sat there trying to replicate a simple Acheulean hand axe, I realized that this was their office. This was their social media. Imagine a group of 20 people. They aren't running through the woods. They are sitting. They are sitting together in a circle, the ground covered in sharp flakes of stone. The sound of the day is a rhythmic clink. Clink, clink. This was a continuous process. A stone tool isn't finished once it's made. It is a living object. Every time you use it to cut wood or butcher an animal, the edge dulls. You have to retouch it. You have to flake away microscopic layers to reveal a new, razor-sharp edge. This activity consumed their lives because it was the barrier between them and death. If your spear tip is dull, you don't eat. If your scraper is blunt, your clothes rot on your back. But it was more than just a chore. As I spent hours trying to shape a single edge, I felt my brain shift. This is what neuroscientists call the flow state. In the Stone Age, this wasn't an escape. It was the default mode of existence. While they napped, they talked. They told stories. They passed down the history of their people. They taught the children how to read the heart of the stone. This tool time was the social glue of humanity. It was the original classroom. It was the original theater. Most of their day was spent in a state of high focus, low stress, creative industry. They weren't primitive workers. They were master craftsmen of the highest order. They knew more about the properties of stone, bone, and fiber than any modern engineer knows about their materials. They spent their days in a meditative state of creation. And as I sat there, my hands sore and my back aching, I realized that for the first time in months, my mind was quiet. I wasn't thinking about my emails. I wasn't thinking about the future. I was only thinking about the next strike of the stone. We often ask, what made us human? Was it the fire? Was it the language? Many anthropologists argue it was the hand, specifically the hand that makes tools. When you spend 6 hours a day for 20 years refining stone, you are literally rewiring your brain. The complexity required to imagine a finished tool inside a raw rock is the same complexity required for language, for math, and for art. We think of the Stone Age as a time of lack, but they had an abundance of the one thing we are most desperate for today: attention. They didn't multitask. They didn't split their focus. When they were making a tool, they were only making a tool. This deep focus allowed them to perceive details we are now blind to. They could see the way a fracture would travel through a rock before they even touched it. They could feel the moisture content in a piece of wood. By spending most of their day in this state of active meditation, they developed a psychological resilience that we have lost. Their survival wasn't just about the calories. It was about the mental clarity that comes from being perfectly in sync with your environment. In my 24-hour challenge, I failed to make a spear that would actually work. I failed to start a fire with a hand drill in under an hour. I realized that my modern skills are useless in the face of their ancient mastery. We call them primitive because they didn't have machines, but they were the machines. Their bodies and minds were the most advanced technology on the planet. So what did Stone Age people spend most of their day doing? They spent it in the pursuit of perfection. They spent it making, mending, and maintaining the world around them. They lived in a state of constant, quiet creation. The next time you see an ancient stone tool in a museum, don't just see a piece of rock. See the thousands of hours of conversation that happened over its making. See the patience of a mind that wasn't rushed by a clock. See the hands that shaped not just the flint, but the very future of our species. Our ancestors weren't running from life. They were deeply, profoundly immersed in it. They didn't work to live. Their work was their life. And perhaps that is why, despite all our modern comforts, we still feel a strange, primal peace when we sit by a fire or work with our hands. We are remembering who we are. We were never meant to be hunters. We were meant to be makers. Does this change the way you look at primitive life? If you had to spend an entire day without your phone, working on a single task with your hands, do you think your mind could handle the silence? Let me know in the comments if you've ever felt that flow state in your own life. If you found this journey into our primordial past insightful, subscribe to Primordial Chronicles. We have many more stories to tell, stories that might just change how you see yourself forever. Until next time, stay grounded.